Welcome to Open Vision, where we uncover what is essential and possible in creating a brighter future. I talk to leaders who are making positive impact in their fields. Today, we're sitting down with Ebele Tate, a London-born writer, producer, and film director, who, after a career in advertising, created award-winning films and screened at BAFTA. She's the founder of G.O.A.T Film Club, an inclusive community for filmmakers, opening doors and creating pipelines into the industry. We are talking about the power of media, storytelling, arts, systems change, and how you can actually create an open vision. Enjoy. I just really wanted to talk to you because you're a producer, director. You've created a couple of movies. In talking about creating positive impact and then creating something for, the betterment of the future, I think media and storytelling are such a beautiful means to create that impact. So can you just start off by speaking on that?
Yeah, absolutely. The moving image is such a powerful medium, and it really does shape culture and society. You only have to look at films such as, I think it's called Beast of a Nation, back in maybe even the 1920s. It's a silent film. And it basically is representative of the Civil War in America. And ultimately, it's like one of the foundational movies that constructed archetypes around the Black image, very negative ones.
Yes.
And those images still impact our society today. It was a film that emboldened the Ku Klux Klan and made it what it is today. They didn't originally run around in white sheaths with hats on until that film. So one of my core driving desires and motivations for making cinema was to shift the narrative around Black and brown identities, and even the female identity and what it means to be feminine and who gets to be feminine. That's one of the driving forces as to why I do it, and just evidence of like how powerful and critical it is for us to be conscious about the images that we're putting out into the world and considered in what stories that we're telling.
Why do you think it's such a powerful medium?
Because we see ourselves reflected. We physically see ourselves reflected in a three-dimensional space. So I think when you have something that powerful visually, it speaks to the subconscious mind directly.
So tell me about art as a force for good, and also how it can, change basically the trajectory of our society, of our culture.
So long as the artist has space or a platform to be seen, it ultimately can be used as a weapon against the powers that be. Artists are free thinkers, and we investigate things, and we are curious, and we question, and we challenge. And don't get me wrong, like a lot of my art, I'm really speaking from a space of my experience, my lived experience, or the lived experiences of my community and people that I know and see in the world. There's a really thin line between creating art that is from a place of trauma and creating art that further perpetuates negative stereotypes. A very thin line, a very thin line. And ultimately, you have to find a way to humanize even the nefarious characters in your story, because we're all human.
Yeah.
No matter what we've done, because whatever that person has done comes from a place of hurt, from how they grew up. And when we can look at it, and like It's not to say that people shouldn't be punished for really problematic things that they do, but there's something about having to try to find the humanity in everything. And that runs across all mediums of art. And I think, art used as activism is incredibly powerful and like the most powerful way to use it. And it's one of the ways in which I like to use it. But it's intrinsic to me because I've always been the type of person who will speak up when I see something that is wrong. It's got me in trouble my entire life.
Okay, somebody has to do it.
Listen.
Talk about authenticity and art as a force for good. I always think that artists, in a way, are in some cases also ahead of their times, right? If you look at, the painters, the big painters of this world, like Van Gogh, what I as a Dutch person say, Van Gogh. He was so misunderstood, and really no one besides his brother really appreciated his work. And now he's one of the most renowned painters. And so there's something to be said for, getting in trouble with voicing your opinion or what you think of a certain situation. But then that's also a starting point, I feel like, for others to see that, recognized, and then say, hey, maybe I can do that next time as well. And again, you create the ripple effect. Your movies or your films, the true line that I see, it's about sense of belonging, identity, and then also a little bit maturing or coming of age and finding understanding of who I am and what my place is in the world. Why is that?
A lot of the stories that I tell really come from a personal place. And growing up as a mixed race child whose Nigerian mother was absent, it was very challenging understanding where I fit, where I fit in the world, and trying to navigate that was a process. Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like when I first started making films, I really didn't want to talk about myself. I would hide from, and I can see how I hid for many years. I ultimately spent, the last several years trying to unpack that and rewire who I am and how I feel about myself and how I see myself. And film gives me that space to explore that. So, yeah.
It's wonderful how you say that it's the process of creating that film is almost rewiring yourself. And of course, you do a lot of other work besides that. But again, back to your point of why film is so powerful. You said that it speaks to the subconscious. So in you healing parts of yourself, rewiring yourself, you're doing that also for a broader collective. And I think that is so beautiful of this industry. Let's talk about representation, because you and I are like sisters. So you're British, Nigerian, I'm Dutch, Gambian. So I truly get it. And I think maybe 10 years ago or so, there was this whole new wave in advertising industry where all of a sudden I saw people like me on television. And then people would say, well, that's not going to solve anything because, it's just an advertorial. And I thought to myself, you don't understand what it means to see someone like you on that big screen, right? That's just the power of representation. It can be one advertisement, but to see yourself there, it's like, hey, it is possible. So in your storytelling and also touching on these topics, how do you feel about what you're doing basically for the collective?
I hope that I think my aim is to allow others to see themselves ultimately, and to be recognized and to be heard and to feel valued and to feel worthy in the world. Because for a long time, I didn't feel that way. So it really comes from like a experienced place. I've managed to step into this space of self-acceptance and authenticity. And I think authenticity is really essential in storytelling and filmmaking, especially because you can really only speak from a place that you understand.
Yes.
And that's where the danger of who is telling those stories comes into play for me. Because ultimately, we live in a system of white supremacy, a construct, racism, like black and white is a construct. It may be a construct, but it's a reality that we all live. What's interesting, especially in England at the moment, is they're doing a lot of like, we don't have racism in this country anymore. And it's like, you just have to walk outside your house and it's palpable. So there's this erasure, this is attempted erasure of the reality of what people of color are experiencing in the world. And you mentioned watching adverts and like finally feeling represented.
Yeah.
But now we're in a place where, yes, we have more images of ourselves on screen, but who is in control of the narrative? We still don't have control of our own narratives. And that leaves us in a very precarious position because everyone, even ourselves, we are embedded with the construct of white supremacy. We are embedded with the discrimination and racism which comes with that. It doesn't matter what race you are, we are embedded with it because we have consumed it for so many years. And it controls the way we operate in the world. It controls the way that we see ourselves. It controls the way that we relate to each other. So it's really time now for Black and brown communities to take hold of their own image, but also from a space of understanding, self-awareness. Things are shifting slightly, but not fast enough. It's like, who's allowed to tell the stories? What are the stories that are allowed to be told? So sometimes you have to try and work outside of the system, which is the harder route. It's a very, very, very challenging route. But it's time. And I really, 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 really hope, especially, you know, America has done it really well. They're an excellent example of underrepresented talent banding together to support the stories that they believe in, that they want to see. You know, we are not a monolith. We have a myriad of experiences in this world, and we deserve to tell those stories. But in the UK, our industry is very fractured, and our communities within those industries are very fractured. That is one of the reasons why I set up a film club called G.O.A.T Film Club, which is really all about championing underrepresented talent and emerging talent and supporting them, whether that be through film exhibition, workshops, pipelines into the industry, and career development. These are all of the core agendas that we have moving forward for that community. It's a marathon, not a race. It's not going to end with me. Someone else is going to have to take the baton. But I think it's really important that to know no one is going to give it to us. No one is going to give the change that we seek. We have to be the change that we seek. So we have to carve out, we have to build our own table. We have to carve out our own spaces.
I love what you just said about coloring outside of the line. If the system wasn't designed for you in the first place, you'll create your own path. But that is a marathon. And I love what you just said, that it's not ending with you. It's just passing the baton. So if you look at that, what is your long-term vision? Let's say 50 years.
Ooh, 50.
100 years.
100 years. I hope that in 100 years, I hope that we no longer have to have conversations with our kids in how to engage with the police. I hope that we no longer have to have conversations with our parents about the microaggressions that we are experiencing in the workplace. I hope in 100 years we no longer have to have diversity initiatives. I want us to have equality. Is it going to happen in 100 years? You know, we've had inequality for over 500 years. Where we are on that scale, I don't know how many years we are from that. Well, from the last 500 years, we've made progress, but this type of work is not going to happen overnight. It's not in a capitalist society's best interest for equality. So the system is broken and it ultimately needs to be dismantled and rebuilt. But that type of thing doesn't happen overnight. And who knows even like what is the best system? It really, the crux of it really comes to human nature. We're so disconnected from each other, especially in the West. Indigenous communities are not like this at all. But in the West, we're very individualized and about what we need on an individual level. And like, that is that person over there. That is their problem over there. If it's not affecting me, I don't care. It's like we need to get back to our humanity. We need to get back to our connection with the earth, with nature.
And so you're saying it's really about that loss of humanity that we have, but also rooted in the disconnect from everything.
Absolutely.
So when we think of the world as a huge ecosystem, Marianne, who I interviewed as well for this podcast, she said, actually, the world itself is an organism and we're part of it.
Absolutely.
Right? But that notion is completely lost. And therefore, we can just exhaust this as a resource, because it's not a resource, but as a resource. And I think it also boils down to like lack or loss of connection with oneself, because that's where everything starts, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And that's the thing, when you have all of this advertising, all of these magazines, of these visual representations of what we should be, and when we're not, it creates insecurity. When we have the news spurting out hate speech, it creates disconnect, otherness between each other.
This is so interesting, all that you're saying, because media, on the one hand, it's like a force to be reckoned with. It's amazing, especially when you have scale and you can reach so many people. And therefore, it's also so very dangerous.
Absolutely. You just look at the propaganda machine during Nazi rule. They used the media as their tool to turn a whole nation against one sect of people. So it's an incredibly powerful tool, but it's incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands. Incredibly dangerous. And it's really, for me as a storyteller, it's important to attempt to counterbalance that.
What do you think that education plays in that?
So there are two sides to education for me. I think institutions can be an incredibly challenging space for people of color. They are a microcosm of like sometimes the worst aspects of society. Having said all of that, knowledge is power. And until I went to university and did my undergrad, which I then went on to do a master's later, I didn't actually realize how powerful the moving image was when I studied the moving image and the ways in which it has been used throughout history to do various nefarious things and also very positive things as well. So when you have that knowledge, you are so much stronger in the world.
So with G.O.A.T, talking about the future, in a way, you talked about the education system or institution is also a micro what do you say, microcosm
Microcosm, yeah,
of
of
all
like
the things that are wrong in
aspects of
society.
society. Absolutely.
Yeah. And now you are actually doing it yourself in a different way. Tell me
Mm.
about that.
Making films is not like a solo career. It requires a team, a tribe of people. That was what I was always lacking. It's very difficult getting into the industry. It's a closed shop. So a lot of people fall by the wayside.
Mm.
A lot of talent, a lot of talented people fall by the wayside. And it normally ends up being underrepresented talent, people of color, voices that we don't get to hear because we have programmers who are old middle-aged white men who are not necessarily inspired by our stories the way that our communities are inspired by our stories. And a lot of the time you get, oh yeah, we've programmed this one film, these 3 films out of a slate of 60 shorts. So G.O.A.T Film Club was really built to address this issue that we have and to create a platform so that underrepresented talent can be seen. And we don't just focus on Black and brown communities. We're also invested in the LGBTQIA communities, disabled filmmakers, and women. All of the we're not even minorities, all of the majorities of people in this world who have been overlooked for such a long time.
I think one of the, or at least my key takeaways from our conversation is really what you're saying, that carve your own path. And then doing that in union with like-minded people or people that are part of your community, to really do that in a way that you use the power of synergy, in essence.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the outcomes of the club that you're very proud of?
I'm proud of the community. I'm proud of the people in the community. I'm proud of the way that they show up for each other. I'm proud of the way that they support each other. You know, we've had some great partnerships with Warner Brothers and Soho House and Picture House, but the community is really my greatest achievement. Fostering an environment that feels safe, where people are respectful to each other.
Mm.
You know, they're, except for one, I'll give it, there's one person
Always
who,
one.
other than that one situation, since 2021, we have had no unrest in our community. And I think that speaks a lot to just my intention around who comes in to the community. I've worked really hard to make sure that the right energy is there, and we're doing the same in our US branches now.
Let's go back to talking about the future. So having an intention really sets the tone for what you're going to experience. And I think, not all of us are filmmakers, but most of us, I think we are watchers. What is your recommendation for people that watch movies or TV series even? With what intention should they watch, and how important is it to know who is the filmmaker, who is the funder, etc., to give you a broader understanding of that context and what's actually being told here? I think that's some of the takeaways that you said earlier on. Is that important? Should we have an intention?
Absolutely. I think if you want to know about a community outside of your own, you should be watching work from someone who is from that community, point blank, period. You
From the
shouldn't
horse's
be,
mouth.
yeah,
Yeah.
literally. It's important to seek out alternative stories to the stereotypical ones that you have grown accustomed to. No, we really have to be responsible for ourselves in this world. In order to do that, we have to become hyper aware of what we are consuming, not just food, but social media, the media, film, because they are subconsciously building our perceptions of the world. So it's important to be inquisitive and to explore and to seek out stories which you are unaccustomed to, but also stories which may be saying something completely different to what you originally believed. And I also believe that just outside of watching stuff, go and travel the world.
Experience it yourself, immerse yourself in it.
Experiencing other cultures is going to change your perspective of the world completely. It's essential. It's essential. It's easy to look outside of yourself at your environment and say, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be. This is who I am. This is what I should be doing. It's easy to look at the fast money and say, I want that, and not invest the time in yourself to build it in a way that serves the greater good of our communities.
I just wrote down artists, like you said, are free thinkers, and that's why they can use art in any shape or form as a vehicle or a force for good.
Mm.
And then the media, of course, film is one way of doing that, but it certainly is not the only way. And I think your final point here is just that you have this responsibility as an individual to say, you know what, I have all of these belief systems in my head, but let me experience and ask questions and explore and become a free thinker myself. True experience. And that can be watching a movie and doing research around that, or it can be to book a ticket and travel somewhere and immerse yourself in a culture completely out of your own. But having that, again, open vision, that will
Absolutely.
then create yourself as a free thinker and essentially as an artist, because I think all of us in a way are creators.
We are creators.
Mm.
That is why we're here. We are here to create our reality. We are not here to consume. But society, we live in a construct of consumerism, of accessibility, which creates a laziness. We want things immediately, you know, everything is so
Instant gratification all the
instant
time.
gratification, instant gratification. But actually, there's something very powerful in delayed gratification, in having to work for something. You know, I have been working towards being, and it's so funny, I always say working towards becoming a filmmaker, but I've always been a filmmaker in my mind. Before I had the tools to do it, I was one in my mind. I think there's a lot to being in alignment and being ready for the thing that you want so that you don't ruin it. You know, there was a long time, a long time where I was not ready for what I wanted because I was still dealing with so much pain and trauma that I was ultimately projecting out into the world. And I am grateful that I didn't ruin it for myself because it could have gone either way. You know, life was not easy. You know, we sometimes have to be ready for the gift that is within, that we come to this earth with. There is no mistakes. Everything happens for a reason. I truly believe everything happens for a reason. It's for us to reconnect, to remember what that purpose is, and to do the work to bring it to fruition. And I think also we also choose the challenges that we face because we ultimately come to learn who we are. We come to become, not to overnight. We are. No.
I now see this, like, you know, I love film. There's this scene in The Matrix, and Neo visits the Oracle, and
I
then
love
she
that.
tells him, you already made your choice or decision. You're just here to understand why you made it. And I feel like in this moment, you are the Oracle right now. Yes.
Oh.
And it also makes me think about, if we think of film, you know, we had the big projectors, and you just mentioned a couple of times, I'm projecting myself outside to the outside world, and that also reflects back to me my core belief. And so there's something to the beginning of our conversation where you said it's about the subconscious mind, how powerful this medium is, but also what you're saying is how powerful we are as
Yeah.
people, and
Yeah.
more powerful even in a community, in a collective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it all it all kind of like ties into frequency and energy. We are a frequency of energy vibrating, and that, God, I'm going to get into like a whole manifestation.
I love this. No, but let's connect it also to
Whole
Albert Einstein,
manifestation.
right? This is E is MC square. It's energy,
Right.
right? Yeah, that's it.
And we are receptors, but we are also like the radio frequency. So whatever frequency you put out into the world is the frequency that comes back to you.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
What an incredible woman. Using your personal journey as a creative resource is what makes art moving. And I have to thank Ebele for being so open with us. Some key learnings. The film is a projection of constructs, stories, and ideas. In consuming the moving image, we as viewers can be conscious of what we're consuming, as it speaks directly to our subconscious. It can either broaden or narrow our own personal horizons. It is our responsibility. Artists are free thinkers. They investigate. Creators always do. But let's not forget, all of us are creators. Every film has an underlying intention. Therefore, it's important to understand who is actually telling the story. It's a necessity to broaden our horizon. Go explore. Sit in the discomfort of understanding something outside of your comfort zone or something that's juxtaposed to what you believe in. We grow through that and discontinue the perpetuation of a non-inclusive system. We have to return to our humanity and connect with Earth. It's essential in creating a better future. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week. And for more information, visit our website, openvision.space.